All right, it's 10 o'clock, so let's get started. Thank you all for joining us today for day 4 of the International Love Data Week webinar series. This session is facilitated by Dr. Rose Tirotta-Esposito and Dr. Yasmene Kimble. Dr. Tirotta-Esposito is the director of CELT, the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching. Dr. Kimble is an assessment specialist, also from CELT. Their presentation is about using course evaluation data to turn student feedback into actionable insights. If you have any questions throughout the session, please leave them in the chat. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to our presenters.
Everyone, thank you so much for coming, joining us today. We're just gonna jump right in. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, we have to start all of our workshops with our session objectives. So we're understanding the value of student feedback, identifying trends and patterns, and reflecting on potential instructional improvements. And we'll introduce everything. We will go over understanding course evaluation data, reviewing your course evaluations, and discussions and suggestions. And please use the chat. We actually want to ask you a question to start with, and you can pop this in the chat. If you remember, or you remember close to it, what was the completion rate of your course evaluations for your fall 2024 courses? And if anyone could guess what the completion rate across the board was, we'd love to know that as well. Does anyone remember the completion rate of theirs and then what it was across the board? Nobody's in the chat.
Rose, I'll take a guess. Was it like 50% for campus-wide? I'll split it down the middle.
Nope. It was lower than that. Anyone else want to take a guess?
5%.
A little higher than that. Thank goodness.
Oh, okay, good.
It's about 30%. Oh no, it's about 30% across the board. So across the board, it's about 30%. And some people have really, really high scores and completion rates, and some people have really very, very, very low completion rates. And it really depends on the conversation you're having with your students a lot of times. And we've talked to students, we've talked to faculty, and we really want to get more information on this. So the importance of student feedback. Can you move to the next slide? It's important across the board, right? And really the way you address it in class is actually critical for getting good feedback from your students, because we do talk to students, but sometimes, coming from the professor, it will definitely have much more weight. It can enhance your teaching quality because it's informing you where the gaps are of the students, like what are the students missing? Maybe there's some confusion. Maybe, they need to have a little bit more information about a certain assignment in order to be more successful. And you can pull that in from the course evaluation comments. It also promotes student engagement and fosters a sense of involvement and investment. Students actually do look at the course evaluations. A lot of them are very, very passionate about filling them out. And then also, they are eventually posted in Classy behind a firewall, and students do go in to use them to choose their courses for future semesters. It can identify strengths and weaknesses, right? It recognizes where you're really succeeding and where the students, how you're helping the students succeed in their academic journey, and where there might be some confusion for students. It supports continuous improvement by ongoing assessment of teaching course content, and it facilitates communication between the students and the instructors and leads to more responsive educational environment. It's really important to even go to students and say, hey, this happened, these are the comments that I had on my course evals, and this is the change that we made in the course this semester. And students really appreciate those changes.
So when you guys are looking at your course evaluation data, there's two types of data that's collected. It's quantitative and qualitative. And so it's very important to look at the trends amongst your course evaluation data and really looking at the high ratings and the low ratings, but also to indicate the strengths and the areas of growth for your overall class structure, teaching practices. And then one thing that's very important when looking at the qualitative data is looking at the repeated comments. And so being able to understand certain themes that students have documented about your class, and also looking at the unique outliers that might not align with the general theme. So you can kind of might need to pay a little bit more attention to those areas and being able to adjust as necessary. And so when you're interpreting student comments, really looking at those keywords that you can kind of just like put in a box and be able to group together. And also being able to understand the context for the feedback. So some classes you might teach, the workload might be different, the course difficulty also might be different. And so taking that to a consideration of how students are going to respond to your class, to your workload. And then also being able to focus on the comments that provide specific feedback and highlight where areas of improvement could be made. So if it comes to like looking at certain questions, whether it's like readings or textbook requirements, being able to look at those and interpret those based off of the common feedback and median of the feedback. And so for our course evaluations at Stony Brook, we both do quantitative and qualitative. And our qualitative, depending on like this right now, there's 12 questions. And so it's the last 2 questions where students can add those comments. And that's where you really want to look and see what other feedback students are giving you. And in those sections, that's where students commonly highlight what they found valuable about the course, or what could be changed to have a better learning experience. And one thing that's very helpful is using AI as a peer mentor or thought partner. And so AI can help you in various ways, being able to look and summarize the key trends and themes that are happening in your courses. Also being able to ask AI to offer recommendations based off of the feedback you've received from your students. And so can download your course evaluation feedback data and input it into AI and be able to ask for suggestions, but then also ask to recommendations on improving teaching methods and course designs. And when you are putting this into ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot, being really specific on like what you want. And so being able to have AI identify your strengths and areas of improvement based off of questions, or being able to summarize students' comments and being able to address those trends, and being really helpful in like incorporating and adding your syllabus or course design to AI so they can tailor it based off of the courses that you're teaching. So here's some helpful resources. So CELT has a template for your syllabus that you guys can use, and also a statement on generative AI and how to use that. And it's important because this question, one of the questions on the course evaluation highlights the expectations of students, and if the instructor conveyed those very well and clear in your syllabus, is a good place to stamp your expectations for students. And another helpful resource is using the mid-semester evaluation. So being able to gauge where you are as an instructor, but also gauge where your students are at. There is a section on the CELT website where you can use an informal Google form, or you can create a Qualtrics survey to give to students and kind of tailor your course based off of those feedback that your students are giving you. And then lastly, there's this interesting feature on Course Eval, which allows instructors to compare their course evaluations with their program, the college, and then just overall university. One thing though that I would be careful of is sometimes, due to the varying response rate, sometimes the comparison isn't always correct. So for example, this particular instructor is a good example. They had the highest course evaluation completion rate, but their comparison rates were kind of low because of the bigger data pool. And then also for FYI, new course evaluation questions will be launched this semester. And so last semester there was 12, excuse me. And this semester there's going to be 10 questions. And so now we want to dig a little bit into your course evaluations and being able to look at the feedback that students gave you last semester. So we have a little activity for you guys to do. And so you guys can log onto course evaluations and select one course from last semester and pick a question to focus on. So you can focus either on question 4 or 5, which is qualitative, or you can focus on questions 11 and 12 and really skimming over the feedback that students left you guys. And so what we want you guys to do is note 1 or 2 trends that are common in your feedback and being able to document any patterns that you see in your course evaluation feedback. So before we begin, do we have any questions?
Did everyone teach last semester? Do we have a lot of people that taught in the fall? Kind of one thumbs up. I am staff, not instructor. So while the instructors are going off and looking at that, I can speak to the staff for a few minutes if that's helpful. Hopefully. So, you know, Yasmene laid out the what to do. So if you're an instructor, I put the link in the chat. You could go there and kind of take a look. Across the board, I'm not sure if the staff have any specific questions about course evaluations, but just to let everyone know, it's really important across the board, especially if you work with students, to convey the importance of course evaluations to them. There are a lot of, I know that some students, you know, there are always mixed feelings about course evaluations, but if students give constructive feedback, it really can help the instructor out a lot. Of course, you know, if one student says they should change everything, right, we can't take that into effect. But if you do see, like Yasmene said, like a pattern, again, I put my course evaluation results into Copilot, and I've kind of gotten some, you know, it came out with some trends, it came out with some patterns, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I was confusing here. So I went in and I explained it a little bit better for this semester. And I'm hoping that I don't see those comments again this upcoming spring. So it's really important for everyone, though, to have that message. Like, not only are course evaluations important, but it's important to provide feedback that can be used in a positive way. If they go in and say, like, this course is really, really bad, or this course was really, really good, that's not very helpful to the instructor. But if they say it was really confusing around module 3 because of X, Y, or Z, or I really enjoyed the readings because they supported, you know, my, you know, activity, you know, the activity that we had later in the semester, or the paper that we had to do later in the semester. Those are much more helpful comments than just kind of across the board, like yay or boo. So explaining that to students and trying to get it across to them is really, really important. So it's important for the instructors to do that. And then it's also important for all academic staff, any staff members that have these interactions with students, if you do have the opportunity to have these conversations, to talk about it with them and really say, hey, you know, do you fill out your course evaluations? Oh, you know, first, why not if they do, or why if, you know, why or why not? And then, like, you know, what kind of feedback do you give? Do you try to give feedback that can help the instructor make changes in order to, you know, for the next class? And sometimes as instructors, I also do give that midpoint evaluation. And actually this past fall, it was really, really helpful because something we were doing in this class specifically was not working. And it was something that I could pivot very, very quickly. And I did that, right? The question, you know, I saw the feedback and I'm like, you know what, this isn't working. And one of the students actually gave a suggestion. So I took that suggestion and I changed it. And, you know, I went into class and I'm like, we're going to change this, you know, thank you to the student that recommended it, because people seem to be having trouble with it. And it was really turned the class around for the second half of the semester. It was really a positive piece of information that was shared with me. Of course, I teach a writing class, so I teach 25 students, and I know that classes that are way larger, which again, like if you can, even if you ask them a couple open-ended questions and kind of put that into a ChatGPT or a Copilot, it's not private information, right? You can kind of get some high-level trends that may be able to, be clarified for the second half of the semester. But I do recognize that it's much more challenging in a larger class than it would be in a smaller class. Has anyone gone into, does anyone have any staff members want us to talk about something specific? And then if any of the faculty have gone in and looked at course evals, is there anything you wanted to share with us? I don't see anybody yet.
Wait,
Pat?
yeah, I just wanted to, like, I'm looking at a particular course and, like, I'm looking at the question, did the use of the required textbooks, readings, or resources justify their cost? And in this particular example, 44% of the respondents said that they agreed, and then 44% of the respondents said sufficiently used but not worth the cost. And I'm just guessing, just throwing it out there for comment and interpretation.
So, I don't, if everyone knows this, you can add, so that is a good question, right? Because it's a quantitative question, we really don't have any more information. So we can look through the open-ended feedback to see if anything has to do with the textbook, or consider, you can add questions to the surveys. So you are allowed to add, we don't have a limit, but we should. You don't want to give them too many questions, but you can always add questions to any of the surveys. And actually, nursing can do so as a whole. Like if if you wanted to do something for the entire department, you could do that, or you could do it for your individual class. And then maybe, like why or why not? Why did you answer that question? And then you might be able to get a little bit more information about it.
Yeah, and I guess as an administrator, is there a way to aggregate, like there's 5 sections to this course, so 5 different instructors. It's we kind of go in individually and look, but I guess there's no way to aggregate everybody's responses for this course this semester, like 5 sections.
Yasmine, are you looking? So Amy Cohen is on medical leave. She was spearheading the reporting issues. So thank goodness we have Yasmine now, and I think she's looking into it. So it's something that we're trying to work with the company to see if we can do.
Yeah.
Okay.
The closest thing we have right now is the course section evaluation. So I'm waiting for them. Hopefully I hear something before the end of the week and I will let you know.
Okay. I'll let the other person ask a question and then I have another one.
Anne?
Hi, okay, thanks, Pat. Yes, I am an administrator. I was looking at your information in terms of evaluating, what do we call it, non-academic programs that we run. And so there's often, I might have 30 students attending a session of our professional development. And I was just wondering if there was any advice you had as far as tailoring to those smaller groups.
Are you using course evals, or are you just not? No,
We are
right?
not using the university's course evaluation system.
No,
we're
that's
doing,
perfect.
we're sending out our own, we do a pre-test and a post-test.
So we can definitely, if you want, take a look at your survey. We do also have a survey for our professional development programs. We run that through Qualtrics.
Okay.
And we do a couple of things. We do an end of the workshop survey, and then we do an end of the semester/year survey, whereas like now that you've come to a workshop, like what have you gotten out of it kind of thing, and have you made any changes in your classes? But we'd be happy to take a look at your survey and maybe offer any suggestions that we might see, because we do have a lot of, we do a lot of survey development across the board. So sometimes it's easier to see the survey and make comments from there. You also want to think about just on a whole, even when you're thinking about, it could be either surveys that you're giving out to students about professional development, or it could be the additional questions that you're asking on your course evals. What answers are you trying to get? Like what are you trying to find out from this survey? And then make sure the questions all address that. because sometimes we ask questions because we think we should ask the questions, I guess, but they're really not helpful to us. So, you know, what are you really looking for? Where, and then, you know, make sure make sure the answers that you're going to get will address what you're trying to find out.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Pat?
Yeah, could you go over I'm looking at some qualitative data of how to put that in ChatGPT and what were the suggestions for that? So
Yeah.
do I just copy and paste like a comment? So there's a comment in here. And
You're
then,
muted,
Oh,
Yasmin.
yeah, so you can copy and paste the comment and whatever the trend or whatever, well, are you looking for feedback or are you looking for suggestions for this particular comment?
either or, I mean,
Okay.
let's do suggestions.
Okay, so you can go into Copilot or whatever your preferred AI platform is, and like ask like, please give me 3 to 4 suggestions based off of this student comment on course evaluations, and then from there generate that, and then see what the AI platform is giving you, and you can ask questions based off of that, or just like ask for them to clarify a little bit more.
Okay, thanks.
And you can copy and paste all of the comments and say, you know, what are 2 things that are really good about my class, and what are 2 things I can improve on? And they would take a look at that and follow some trends. And of course, we all know, I'll give the disclaimer, right? It's generative AI. It's not always perfect, but it does help, especially if you have a large class and a lot of comments. I mean, I've seen sometimes there are pages and pages of comments on certain course evaluations because of the amount of people in the class.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, or did anyone who taught in the fall go in there and take a look? Okay. I'm happy to share too. I know Yasmin, I could share the old questions and the new questions since we have some time.
Okay.
Does that, if that interests people? So I'll start, and I'll share these as well. Wait.
I'll share it.
Rose, and Yasmin, I have a question maybe while you're pulling that up. So I know you kind of talked about the response rates earlier. Have you heard of any strategies that faculty and staff are using that have been really effective to get students to respond to the course evaluations?
Yeah, so there's a few like this course based, but being able to talk about it in class, like Rose said earlier, how instructors talk about course evaluations is how students are going to deal with the course evaluations. And so point systems, sometimes like extra time in class, also being able to be exempt from an assignment. So it really just depends on the instructor's preference.
And our course evals are completely anonymous, but some professors have said, like, if there's an 80% or a 90% completion rate, then like everyone gets a point on something, or everyone gets, right, like an assignment that they don't, you know, that can be dropped. And then they start hounding all the other students in class to make sure that they get those points. And the faculty member can't see any data before the course evaluations are released, and the course evaluations aren't released until after all the grades have been posted. But they can see the completion rate. So they can see, like, you know, 90 out of 100 people have filled it out. And they can watch that. And so I've done it in class where I've given them time in class, and I've shown them, like, hey, like, you know, nobody's filled out the course eval. And then I could show them again at the end, like, oh, look, thank you. You know, 20 out of 25 has. I will still give time in class, and still people will not fill it out. And actually I give out a second survey, and I usually get more responses on that one than the course eval. So we're also like trying to talk to the students and find, I don't know if there's any students here, but we're trying to talk to the students and find out why would they fill out the survey, you know, how, you know, what drives them. And there's a mix of reasons, obviously. But you know, time is a really big issue for a lot of them. So even if we have a raffle and we're going to give away, like, you know, Beats headphones, it's still like, that's not worth it sometimes, because they're studying for finals, and they're really, you know, they're spending a lot of time on their classwork. and the course evaluations close before, depending on when their finals end, they could be closing at the same time. So sometimes we do get student feedback and say, can you keep them open longer? But there's a careful balance about trying to do that all, to make sure that the faculty have enough time and then the students have enough time. So just these are the current questions, excuse me. The ones in bold are the ones that we did keep, and this was a 2-year process, just so everyone knows. And there was a faculty group, and they met, and there were surveys sent out to all faculty, staff, administrators, students, and all this feedback was collected. And finally, we came down to 10 questions. We kept most of the, we kept the bolded ones, and then some of them are slightly changed to make it a little bit clearer for students to understand, and also for the faculty to try to get more out of the responses than some of the questions we had before. And we could share these questions, obviously, but eventually they'll be up on our website, and we'll have more communications around it as we push out course evals for the spring semester. Yasmene, do you want to go back to yours?
Yes. So we take a look a little bit, if anyone wanted to share any reflections or insights that they saw for faculty when you guys were looking at your course evaluations. Or anything that you guys are looking forward to this upcoming semester, or looking to implement this upcoming semester.
I can share with you, as an administrator, I look at all the course evaluations, and that's why I was asking the question about if we could aggregate the scores, but more so in the qualitative feedback. If I were to look at the 5, like for example, 5 sections of one particular course, there was a lot of feedback in the number and the types of assignments and the assessment point value assigned to them, and so there was sort of a trend of this discussion board assignment is a lot of work for the 5% of my grade that I get for it, or something like that. And so that showed up a couple of times in a couple of sections of the same course.
Thank you for sharing.
We would love to meet with you guys. If anyone has more questions or want to even go over their course evals or share with your faculty, we love to meet with faculty and talk about strategies. We have Yasmene, we have instructional designers, so we're here for everybody.
All right. Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Tirotta-Esposito and Dr. Kimble. We appreciate your very informative and interactive presentation. And for the rest of our participants, see you in the other sessions for the Love Data Week webinar series for today. And don't forget, we have an open house tomorrow at noon in Wang Center from noon to 2. All right. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.